one. And welcome everyone to another Smart Money Circle episode. I'm Adam Sarhan. With me today is William Santana Li, also known as Bill Lee, who's the chairman and CEO of Knightscope. Ticker symbol is KSCP. That's K as in Ken, S as in Sam, C as in Charlie, P as in Paul. Bill, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having us. Greetings from Silicon Valley, Adam. Let's talk about all things Knightscope.
Yes, sir. So I always like to begin, Bill, if you can tell us a little about your story and how you got to where you are today, we'd greatly appreciate it.
Yeah, quick background. Early in my career, spent a good amount of time in Detroit as an ex-automotive executive. I've got to see the inner workings of a major corporation on 4 continents. I think if you go on my LinkedIn profile, I look unemployable during that period. I kept getting promoted and double promoted every few months, and it was awesome training ground. I got to do component system, vehicle engineering, product strategy, market research, manufacturing rationalization, financial models. Second last job there as director of mergers and acquisitions. Last job there, ill-advised. I was an intrapreneur. Convinced the board to release $250 million to me to do a roll-up in the used parts industry.
Oh, wow.
Bought 22 companies in 11 months. Had about 600 employees doing about 150 million in sales, and built the second largest automotive recycler in the world. And that subsequently, after several transactions, got bought by LKQ, which is also publicly traded. I think they're probably 10, 15 billion now. And that gave me a bit of the entrepreneurial bug. I was the youngest senior exec at Ford at the time, which was a big deal back then. I was like 430,000 employees, a little bit different today. And then, I think kind of fast forward, got 2 things happened. I think one, autonomy and on self-driving technology. I really was going to turn the $2 trillion auto industry completely upside down. I'm just not necessarily in agreement on how to commercialize the technology, and we should talk about that.
Yeah.
Then the other was, so I was born in New York City. Someone hit my town on 9/11. Still pretty pissed off about it. And so I decided then that I was going to dedicate the rest of my life to better securing our country. And so we founded Knightscope about 10 years ago. And it's been quite a wild ride. The statistical probability of founding a company, getting it funded, growing it, taking it public, and buying a company in that same year is, very, very slim odds. But we got a very interesting set of technologies to help officers and guards do their jobs more effectively.
Wonderful. I love that story. So noble cause, by the way, too. I'm also from New York, born and raised in the area. And it's one of those things where it's just the bam, bam kind of a thing. All right. Please tell us about your business. We want to know all about Knightscope.
So maybe pulling off of that tangent that we went off on New York, 10 years in the making. Last month, we had a police escort of our Robot Roadshow into New York City, into Manhattan, and Mayor Adams and the entire NYPD brass was out in force to welcome us into town. We signed our hopefully one of many first agreements to deploy our autonomous security robot technology in New York City.
Wow.
Which was, overwhelming. I'm still in shock that everything happened, like to be working this hard for the longest of time and to get recognized like that. It was just certainly a milestone for us. So our technology, well, maybe let's talk about the problem first real quick. And because usually investors are, worried about market, they work at, technology risk and then execution risk. So maybe if we cover those 3, might be time well spent. So let's talk about the problem. So crime and terrorism have a $2 trillion negative economic impact on the U.S. every single year. It's a hidden tax we all pay in blood, tears, and treasure. The country is not...
Sorry, Bill, that's just the U.S., not worldwide, just to clarify.
Correct. That's the U.S. So if you add up all the jails, all the ambulances, all the hospitals, all the lawyers, all the judges, and everything else, it's $2 trillion of wasted money.
Wow. And
I don't believe the founders of our country ever expected us to build a society where going to work, going to school, or going to a movie theater literally came with the risk of being shot or killed. The country, as much as I love it, is not set up to fix the problem. And I can assert that because the country is over 200 years old. We're on our 46th president, and obviously it's not working. The structural problem that, I came from a roll-up kind of first entrepreneurial venture, and I look at this and it's so fragmented. And what I mean by that is you look at the Department of Defense, there's one person in charge, the Secretary of Defense, has an $800 billion budget. There's a massive military industrial complex like a Northrop Grumman, Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, Boeing, to build the 2+ million soldiers, every level of capability you could possibly imagine in a theater of war. And it's an incredible amount of allocation of capital, risk capital, an innovation process. Okay, it takes too long, costs too much money, but the widget comes out at the other end, right? What's really weird is on our own soil, we don't have that.
Right.
So the U.S. Department of Justice and the U.S. Department of Homeland Security have no federal jurisdiction over 19,000 law enforcement agencies and 8,000 private security firms. There's no one in charge. There's no risk capital. There's no innovation process. And that's why in 2023, we're sitting here talking, and I don't say this for exaggeration, there's literally guards out there sitting out in the parking lot with a number 2 pencil and a notepad. And you would never dare put a soldier in that level of risk and lack of tools. And so what I see is a huge, maybe weird way to look at a roll-up or a very fragmented industry that's lacking leadership in technology and product and tools. The other weird thing is the quick math problem. There are 1.5 million law enforcement professionals in the US. There are about 1 million security guards. So that's 2.5 million people. They're running 24/7. You can't triple shift a human. So every post that you want to run 24/7, you need 4 of them, right? So you got to divide that by 4. So there's 600,000 humans trying to secure 332 million Americans across 50 states. Like the math doesn't work, and we need to give them new tools. And so what Knightscope does in terms of our solution is we want to put 1 million machines in network across the country that are a combination of 4 really profound, difficult technologies unto themselves, but combined into something that's even harder to do, which is autonomy or self-driving technology, robotics, AI, and electric vehicle technology. And to have these robots be able to patrol 24/7 with a perfect memory and provide both a physical deterrence to stop negative behavior in the first place, but also give the officers and guards really smart eyes, ears, and voice on the ground in multiple locations at the same time. And, when we started the company 10 years ago, everyone was like, hey, Bill, you're out of your mind. This is never going to work. It's hardware, software, too complicated. Physical security is not an investment thesis, blah, 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 blah. Well, we grew the company. We just announced our first quarter financials a week or so ago. And, we did maybe 2.9 million in the first quarter. So we're kind of $11 million annualized run rate. We've operated more than 2 million hours across the country. Wow. We have major clients besides NYPD that we just mentioned. We've got several publicly traded companies like ABM and Lowe's and PG&E and Penn Entertainment. And we've plenty of hospitals, casinos, schools all across the country. And the rise of the robots is happening. And if you're looking for a pure play on actual practical use of AI technology, this is not like we decided to look something up on ChatGPT over the weekend and just came up with it. We're like literally operated over more than half a dozen summers and winters across the country. But what we were doing is technically extremely difficult. So, it's no one in the history of mankind has done this before. And I think that's, I'll end this part of it on I think a humorous point for me, maybe not so humorous for your audience. Like I find it so intriguing that a lot of investors in whatever part of the maturity process, either, hedge funds or VCs or retail investors or whatever it might be. It's funny that a lot of people want outsized outlier returns, but your company and what you do needs to fit in a certain bucket. And I've had all these kind of weird conversations with folks, is like, or like an equity research analyst. Well, we don't know to put you in public safety. Do we put you in autonomy? Do we put you in robotics? Do we put you in security or Internet of Things or whatever? And it's like, okay, you're looking for outlier returns and you want it to look like everything else you've done before. Like it intellectually doesn't make a lot
By
of sense.
definition. Yeah, exactly.
So comps for us it's really hard because no one's really doing this
Mhm.
at scale. But we made it this far, and we're grateful for all our investors that helped us get here.
I love that. That's a really, really great way of summarizing it. You got the problem, you got the solution, and then you spoke about execution too. So you said there's 600,000. Yep. So you want to hit
Yeah,
execute.
so let me thank you for that. Let me
Yeah.
finish the point. So I think first let's talk about market risk. I can pretty much assure you that the market for crime is not going to collapse tomorrow, right? So if we got a recurring revenue business model for a recurring societal problem, like inherently we don't have a market risk. There's a need, there's budget, and we have the technology to help with it. In terms of technology risk, yeah, what we're doing is extremely difficult. But we've had clients renew for their 5th year, 6th year, 7th year. You don't get someone to pay you full price for almost a whole decade, and you're not creating value for them. So I think there's always ways to improve things. There's a long technology roadmap for us. But have we taken the basic technical risk of I don't know how to get from A to B out of the equation? Yes. So notionally speaking, no market risk, not really a technical risk. So what's left? Execution risk.
Right.
And that's kind of what the phase we're in right now, which is transitioning from low volume manufacturer. By the way, we design these, we engineer them, we physically build them ourselves, deploy them across the country, and support them 24/7. So we're transitioning from kind of low volume onesie twosie thing to actual volume assembly, and going through the growing pains of that transition. But hopefully, thankfully, we have a seasoned team that's been around the block and knows how to do this, and we're working through it. But I think we've taken as much risk out of the business as possible, and just going to continue to try to grow the company.
I love that. So let's talk about that 600,000 man hours. You can't have them work 4 or 5 shifts, but I guess robots, they don't sleep. They just have to be recharged, I'm assuming, correct?
So that's yeah. So
Yeah.
600,000 humans at any given time, if you want to allocate the resources that the country has,
Right.
and correct, the robots don't sleep. They literally operate 24/7. Perfect memory. All the AI to get all the navigation of operating outdoors, indoors, for the machines to recharge themselves, to be able to read a license plate, to detect a person. The officers of guard can speak through the machine as if it's a mobile PA system. Those announcements can be automated. You can also run a thermal scan of the environment. And just think of it, maybe just as an example. If I put a marked law enforcement vehicle in front of your home or your office, criminal behavior will change. And just that physical deterrence of, being there stops a lot of nonsense. What we've had with a lot of clients where they had 10 stolen cars a month, and they deployed our machine, and now it's down to 0. Well,
Right.
what is that factor that's happening? It's, well, no different than a security guard. You're there to observe and report, but your physical presence gets people to do a double take. So you pull up into a parking lot at 3 o'clock in the morning. There's a 5 foot tall, 400-pound machine with the strobe light going. It says police or security on the side. It may announce something. There's no one remote controlling it. It's literally level 5, fully autonomous, hands off. You have no idea what it does. Like, you're probably going to steal the car somewhere else. And the last thing you need is 360-degree high definition live streaming video at eye level of exactly who you are and what's going on, right? And the idea is to give, again, the officers and guards eyes, ears, and voice on the ground, so they have the tools to do their jobs.
I love that. It's to me, I mean, I wouldn't be there at 3 o'clock in the morning anyway, but if I was, I'd be worried to pull out Terminator and just start, blow my brains out. So there's no
Well, that's what we
question.
do, Adam. I mean,
Right.
didn't you get the memo? We work for Big Brother, and this is a Skynet subsidiary, and the robots are
Right.
coming to kill everyone and take everyone's job.
Yeah, seriously.
All kidding aside, if you actually go to knightscope.com/crime,
Mhm.
you can see the really long list of all the positive things these machines have already done for society. including, stopping a domestic abuse case, stopping an armed gunman, issuing an arrest warrant for a sexual predator, and the list goes on. And I remind people that 10 years ago, like, you were told, oh, it will never work, this will never make an impact. Well,
Best stories. Yeah.
you stand corrected. Have a nice day.
Seriously. I love that. All right, Bill, let's talk about two things. I'd like to talk more about what the robots do, but competitive advantages, you don't really have competition yet in this space that I'm aware of. Is that correct?
At scale, no. I think probably should be noted, our long-term mission is to make the US the safest country in the world. We would be highly arrogant and naive to think we're just going to do that by ourselves. So, we certainly applaud anyone and everyone working on stationary or mobile or AI related or any type of technologies that, keep officers safe, improve community safety, improve the country. So, I have a different view on competitive activity.
Welcome it. Yeah, I love that. So let's talk about the actual capabilities of these robots to educate investors a little bit in the audience here. What do they do exactly? And that's my first question.
So first, they generate over 90 terabytes of data a year that no human is going to be able to process. So for example, let's say you're a hospital, you're a corporate campus, commercial real estate, airport. You terminated someone last week and it didn't go well, and you're worried that they might come back. You can upload the profile pic of the person. You can upload any and all mobile devices associated with that person. You can upload their license plate, and then the machines are literally on the lookout 24/7. They're not texting, they're not doing anything else. And be able to send that alert via email, text, phone call, or an alert on their user interface to a human. And this is the whole concept of software plus hardware plus humans. That's the most powerful concept here in solution. And to have the robots do I'll say the monotonous and computationally heavy work, and let the humans do the enforcement and the decision making. So and this is public information, one of the challenges that New York City has is, I believe it's something on the order of 33,000 law enforcement officers, and they're losing 3,000 to 4,000 a year.
Wow, that's 10% or more.
And so they have budget, they have a problem, and they need to redeploy resources. And could the machine act as a way to remotely monitor a location where you need a physical presence, or maybe you don't need 4 or 6 officers there, you need 1 plus the robot, and those other 5 officers can literally be where they're needed. And 2:00 in the morning in the train station is like, okay, maybe a better allocation of resources. And it needs to be, I know a lot of investors always like, oh, you're just gonna put everyone out of a job. It's like, there's not enough officers and guards, right? That's not the play here. Yeah. We need to be able to cover a lot more ground with the same or less resources, right? And so that's kind of the angle here, where you're able to give someone, I'll say, almost superhuman capabilities at their fingertips. To, as long as you got a Chrome browser and an internet connection, you pretty much have access to the machine anywhere in the world.
Wow. So, well, okay, a few questions here. So it's almost like another tool for them to use. Instead of just having a hammer or a screwdriver, you now have a wrench, or you have a third thing, just another tool for the humans to use.
Well, as the commissioner of the NYPD mentioned during the press conference, is like, at one point in time in our society, we didn't have fingerprinting.
Right.
At one point in time in our society, there was no 911
phone number,
call center, right?
Yeah.
You can go down the list of all the innovations that seemed maybe crazy back then, but now it's like, how could you possibly not have that? And it's going to be the same thing with the robots. It's like, would you, as let's say you're a commercial real estate developer, would you build a building today without a smoke alarm and a fire detector? Like, you wouldn't actually be allowed, I believe, right? At some point in time, it's kind of like, you didn't want to pay the $7 an hour to have a robot help you better secure the places people live, work, study, and visit. And the really uncomfortable conversation for a lot of CEOs, health administrators, city councils and mayors is like, if your people are your most valuable asset, then you're going to have to answer the extremely difficult question as to why are you not using the most advanced technologies to keep them safe, right? At as low as 75 cents an hour, as high as $9 an hour, you kind of got no excuse.
So they don't have to actually buy the robot; they just pay hourly. Is that how it works?
Yeah. So
Wow.
the idea here, we sign, year-long contracts running 24/7 with an automatic renewal, and we're in charge of. We take care of the hardware, the software, the maintenance, the decals, the shipping, the deployment, the training. Everything's all included. One throat to choke, and we're responsible. And you got to remember, these security professionals and mayors and chiefs, they're up to their eyeballs with workload. Do you really
Already.
want them to, hey, now you need to go set up a robot maintenance service division? I mean, like, seriously?
Yeah.
And so for us to provide that subscription service, from an investor standpoint, you really want to think through, oh, wow, there's a recurring revenue stream for a recurring societal problem. So long as you get the cost of the machine covered, let's say the first year, the second, third, fourth, fifth year, you're just printing money.
Yeah.
Other than the operating costs, which obviously you need to maintain. So just to put you a level of duress we put these machines under. So let's say you drove your car, Adam, 24/7 for 30 days in a row. We figured out how to fuel you up. Probably at the end of the month, you might need some maintenance and service. Like at low speeds, you probably would void the automaker's warranty, right? And so there has to be some concept of maintenance and service and support. And now that we've done this for more than 2 million hours, we kind of know how to work it.
I love it. That's really, really powerful. All right. So one of the businesses I'm invested in is a courier company. They do that. They drive all the time, and it's 24/7, and they do medical work, and so I'm very familiar with that situation. All right, Bill. Next question for you. The robots, the machines. Elon Musk was talking yesterday at his annual meeting about the autonomous driving, and he's saying within a year, hopefully, to be ready this year. Have you guys spoken at all? I'm interested in that question with Tesla or with Elon, or is there any overlap there? And then, what parallels do you have with being 100% autonomous, if you will? That could this technology shift to automobiles as well for Mobileye or Laser, some of these other companies that are trying to tackle that, or is that two separate things altogether?
So I wouldn't comment on, we talk to a lot of auto manufacturers. All of them have a large physical security footprint. And there's certainly opportunities in that vertical. I personally am a huge fan of what the Tesla team has done. They've taken some very calculated, awesome technical risks, and they're paying off. As an ex-auto executive, like I would, if I was back in Detroit, I'd be like, just hang it up. These guys and gals have their
Yeah.
act together big time in some very profound ways. And unless you're an auto industry insider, you kind of, some of the stuff he says or his team says may go over a lot of people's heads. I look at that and I'm like, man, they're firing on all cylinders, and probably that's the wrong analogy to make. But in terms of autonomy, the technology is extremely difficult. And one of the things that I've had a huge concern over, if you didn't catch the Bloomberg article from maybe, I want to say 3 or 4 months ago, I think they went around and tallied up how much money was invested in self-driving stuff, right? How many companies, how much money has been burned? So I think they ended up somewhere north of $100 billion. And I think from my other counting, like 200 companies working on it. And their collective revenue is close to zero, if not zero. No one shipped anything.
Wow.
That tells you the level of difficulty or the competitive advantage that Knightscope has, having operated 24/7, 365, level 5, fully autonomous, hands off. And those 2 million hours actually make a difference. We've learned a thing or two. And my approach was, and still is, like, can we prove that this can work 1 to 3 miles an hour first?
Great.
And then we
Makes
can
sense.
go and increase speeds over time. Elon and the Tesla team took a dramatically different approach. And I love what they did, and we're certainly rooting for them. but they too have not yet, delivered full autonomy. It'll happen in the architecture that they've set up, and kind of the pace they're going with the amount of data. I'm hopeful that it's going to be in the near term, right? The other approaches, like, I'm not too fond of, because it's the technical equivalent of, I want to go to Pluto, but I don't want to stop at Mars or the moon first.
I get that.
It's like the most difficult thing. Like, an engineer is really good at solving problems with constrained boundary conditions, right?
Okay.
And you're basically telling Mr. or Mrs. Engineer, hey, can you put this 4,000-pound unmanned vehicle on a public road, random time of day, random climate, random conditions, no regulatory framework, no safety framework, no insurance framework, but I need you to make sure it works 100% of the time and never fails, go.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, it's a dumb engineering assignment.
Yeah, seriously.
However, I think the path that Tesla took is, dramatically different and extremely exciting. And I don't think I know of any other board or company that would have taken the technical risk that they've done. But I think it's about to pay off, which I'm really excited for. So I think autonomy, to answer your question, is going to become slowly more widely available. But putting us and Tesla aside, you're 5, 10, 15, 20 years away for this to be kind of at scale.
Interesting. So my question was more from the TAM, the total addressable market for you. Would that be something that you can use your
Oh, I
technology?
see. So
Yes.
I would be looking at it differently.
Okay, sure.
So I'm always back to the mission. What are you trying to do? I'm trying to secure the
Protect
US.
America.
If you told me that, paper clips and rubber bands would fix the problem, like, we're going to build the best paper clip and rubber band. I don't care what it takes to fix the damn problem. Well, one thing to think about on terms of the TAM and us growing, I'll say medium and long term, to better answer your question, is as we are able to increase our speeds, think about Chicago or LA, where you have a police patrol vehicle, and there's probably about 500,000 of them in the US, running 24/7. And if you're in a difficult part of town, usually you need to run 2 up, meaning 2 officers, right? 2 officers to do 24/7, you need 8 officers, right? Plus the pension and the insurance, and all the related costs, the car, the maintenance, the service, the fuel, the everything else. If you add up all that to patrol 24/7, is over $1 million a year.
Wow.
Right? So can you imagine perhaps Knightscope in the medium to long term to have something that would patrol a city or a highway? And I think I can say with passing the red face test, we could definitely do that significantly less than $1 million.
Wow, yeah,
a year.
good question.
And I think that is kind of the vision as we grow. Again, to give the officers and guards more tools for us to be able to do and cover more ground. And securing a highway is very different than securing the underpass of a bridge, is different than securing a federal courthouse or anything like that. So what you should expect from Knightscope is a very wide portfolio of products over the long term, every shape, size, indoor, outdoor. And then on the y-axis, you need these machines to be able to see, feel, hear, smell, and speak, and do 100 times more than a human can ever do. And now, talk to me about those 2.5 million people that get up every morning and are willing to take a bullet for you and your family. We now have given them a fleet of 1 million machines with all these capabilities. Can we please address the problem so that we can actually live in safer communities in a safe country?
I love that. So interesting. So there's other products coming, not just the robots and the autonomous driving, the patrol cars, and so many other ones as well. That's really fantastic. So let's talk about shift the conversation a little bit here, Bill. Risk. How do you handle risk, and what mistakes do you see people make with respect to risk management?
So as the renegade entrepreneur, most people think that, like, okay, the founder's the nutcase and trying to take as much risk as possible. What we're doing is technically very difficult, as we spent a good amount of time here already on it. The market is also a little bit difficult, and try to be as polite as possible. It's not like state, local, federal governments and law enforcement agencies and security folks are the most technologically advanced and progressive and accepting folks in the world, right? It kind of moves slow. But, one of the big risk things that very popular with some investors, not so popular with others, is our mission is to secure the US. And for a decade, we've been pinged left, right, and upside down every day or every month of, when are you coming to Argentina? When are you going to China? What are you going to do in Poland? When are you coming to South Africa? And so I've worked on 4 continents. I kind of know what it takes to do it. It might look really pretty on a PowerPoint, but not adding that level of risk to our team, our shareholders, and our clients. And what I've said publicly, and this is half in jest and half serious, is, once we're in all 50 states, we've delivered on the mission, we've got 500 million cash on hand, and we're bored out of our minds, and we don't have anything else to do, like, we can go work on, Colombia or Brazil or whatever. But
Right.
this is difficult enough, and we should not be taking that level of risk. If it was software only, it'd be one thing, but we should not be doing that level of risk for kind of where we're at. And that's popular with some folks. That's deeply unpopular with others. But I've got to take as much risk out of this as possible.
No, that's very, very smart. So, and how about mistakes? What are some mistakes you see people make, and how do you avoid them? If a risk, with respect to risk.
Mistakes? There's no mistakes, Adam, here. Like, 10 years, everything has gone swimmingly well, everything according to plan. How could you possibly ask me that question?
I'll come back to that, but keep going. Yeah.
We plenty of mistakes, I think I've confessed this before, and I don't know how I would have fixed it, but I used to lose in my old jobs in Detroit, not for a fact, lose $500 million in rounding. Like, you're just trying to, and there, one thing I miss is, I don't want to say unlimited, but significant amount of resources and capital you have at a major corporation. And I wish we, would have been able to raise a lot more capital throughout the last 10 years, because the order of magnitude of difficulty and technologically versus the amount of capital that we raised is not kind of aligned, right? If you would have wanted to possibly raise 2 or 3x more, but on the flip side, the team has been very scrappy to be able to do all this with relatively speaking a small amount of capital. So it's a mistake, I think, that happened. I don't know how we would have cured it along the way, to try to raise more for the difficulty of what we're doing. The pandemic certainly didn't help. I think one thing that's hurting now that it's not a mistake, it's I think a headwind we're dealing with, is just supply chain issues. Like, we now hold I think at the end of first quarter, north of $5 million of new orders of backlog of new contracts. Wow. And last year we did, north of 5 million in revenue. So at the end of the first quarter, we're holding as much potential revenue as we did the entirety of last year. I think, we've got some traction, but we also have some challenges that we need to deliver through all the supply chain nightmare stuff that's, been ongoing since the pandemic started.
I love that. So let's talk about some timeless lessons, Bill, that you've learned along the way that you'd like to share with the audience, please.
Timeless lessons. I think one of the things that's controversial for us, and I always typically tell founders and entrepreneurs, is there's a lot of talk over here in Silicon Valley of product market fit. That's all you need to focus on. But no one sits down with the founder at the beginning of the company and asks them, what is the appropriate source of capital for what you're trying to do? So capital to company fit, right? Yeah. And in our case, because we have this grandiose mission, we went down a completely different path with some benefits, which is, we raised over $120 million from 35,000 investors all across the country. And, I don't think we would have been able to make the changes that we want, got the introductions that we needed, or gotten the support if it was four institutional investors in an ivory tower and we want to go make the US the safest country in the world. You're going to need millions of people to go, yeah, the way we're doing public safety is not kind of working right now. We need to make a major change, right? And you're going to need a lot of help and a lot of support. And as much as we want a million machines in network, we need a million supporters to be able to go, all right, enough is enough. This is not how our children should be growing up. This is not how we should be operating, and we need to make some massive changes. So I think that company the capital type of discussion is important. And then the second one I would say is, be brave enough to say no. And I still think I would have done what I did before, which while we were private, I think it's highly inappropriate to be selling board seats to the highest bidder. Basically, the convention is, you wrote the largest check in a round, so therefore you get a board seat. It's like, man, what a convoluted freaking way to build some level of governance.
Yeah, seriously.
So that to me is, wholly unpopular with some folks, but then explain to me why a NASDAQ or an NYSE or a bunch of state regulators are running around trying to change, governance and the like in the public markets and forcing companies to make changes. Why? Because the whole kind of setup is rigged. It's not supposed to work that way. So I think those are two. And then the last one I would say, as hard as it is, don't ever, if it's really important and it will make a profound difference to society, no matter the risks, if you see a path, you almost have an obligation to see it through and as best you can. And don't ever let people, tell you no. I mean, I said a different way, Adam. We closed 35,000 investors. You can imagine how many people we talked to and told us no, for us to be able to do that in terms of just ratios. And you got to be able to take that negativity, that the banana peels, the people throwing rocks and everything else, and just like, okay, just get up the next morning, dust yourself off, and get back on a interview with you and be able to continue to tell the story and keep fighting the good fight. And it's painful. People, I've often kidded, I'm like, if we had a reality show, watch us behind the scenes for 10 years, to people knew what it actually took to build a company like this, it would first be probably put in the horror section. And then most people would be like, this is not believable. This is just not how you can possibly build a company, because they don't realize how hard it is and how much, gratitude I have for our team to continue to miss madness of, getting something that's really hard to do and get it working, and, still get punched in the face for breakfast, kicked in the stomach for lunch, and body slam for dinner, like every freaking day. But you got to get up the next morning and keep pounding.
This is really great. I'm taking notes here as you're speaking, Bill. It's really, really just fantastic stuff. I love the resilience. I love the tenacity. I love the not saying no. I love the understanding that someone says no to you. It's not a defeat. It's not a failure. It's just this
negative fuel. It's literally
exactly.
Negative fuel. Well, all right. Maybe it's the New Yorker in me. Like, keep telling me no. One more time. Right?
Yeah. Tarzan. I'm still standing. Yeah.
Not everything's always going to work out the way you want it. But you got to give it your all. Like you got to keep going until you can. One of my good friends used to call me the no door guy. I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? He's like, okay, if there is a wide open door, and then there's a smaller door, and then there's a really small door that's closed, and then there's no door. Bill's the no door guy. He's gonna go make a hole and go where he thinks we need to go. And that's basically what the Knightscope team has done over these last 10 years. And now we just need the help and support to continue to grow the company. If folks want to learn a little bit more about, what the company does, we do a Rise of the Robots little a series of videos. You can go to knightscope.com/rise, RISE, and all that good stuff is there for you.
I love it. So I've got a few more wrap-up questions here, more again, leadership based. If you have a few more minutes, that'd be fantastic.
Go for it, Adam.
Okay, thank you kindly, because this is fantastic. What are some timeless mistakes you see people make, and how do you avoid them?
I literally, I think the antithesis of what I just laid out, like
Yeah.
giving up too early. Oh, they said no. Oh, like I talked to 120 people and they said no, and I guess I should just stop. Like it took me 364 days to raise the seed round of $1.5 million here in Silicon Valley, where 100 or 200 billion dollars goes into startups every year, and we couldn't get the thing funded. Like if I would have just stopped the third month, the fifth month, the seventh, like we wouldn't be sitting here talking.
100%.
And you know, you just, if you really want something done, you know, you kind of need to force it, right?
Yeah.
You know, try to raise as much capital as you can. And I probably another mistake I would say that, you know, I often caution folks to do, and there are entrepreneurs that do this, is let me go work on something that I'm half-hearted about. Like, oh, these type of things are getting financed, you know, public markets or whatever. Let me go work on that. And the reason I caution against that is it's going to be 3 o'clock in the morning one day, and you're going to be staring at the ceiling going, what the hell am I going to do now? And
Yeah.
you have got to be able to do the irrational, sometimes stupid,
Oh, I love
sometimes dumb,
that. I love
sometimes
that.
illogical thing that no sane person would ever do in
Yep.
order for your company to continue to grow. And you got to be able to believe in it so much that you're willing to take those risks no matter what criticism you're going to get from the, the markets, from your own team, from clients, from whoever it might be. You got to believe in your and down to the bone. Otherwise, the likelihood of failure is really high. Like 95% of startups literally fail. Like I live here in
Right.
Silicon Valley, as I mentioned. Like there's 20,000 startups here, and 95% of them fail.
Yeah.
You gotta think that through.
Yeah.
Um, and you know, sometimes you need some luck. You certainly need great people. Sometimes, you know, folks need to cut your break.
Yep.
But you
No
need to be
question.
able to keep at it. But it's got to be something you love. Like, you know, life is short. You know, do what you love and try to make a big impact.
I love that. Now, let's talk about, oh, those are just really fantastic. I'm gonna have to listen to this a few times, Bill, after we're done, because I'm taking notes here and you're talking, and I'm gonna go, and I'm still I'm loving this. Let's talk about what makes a great leader. You're a leader. You've led teams. You've done this for decades now. Ever since
Oof.
and afterwards, yeah. Let's talk about some leadership a little bit, please.
Uh, you know, the concept of benevolent dictator, like it can't be a democracy. I try. I'm far from perfect. I made tons of mistakes. Um, you screw up, you apologize, you acknowledge a mistake, you do the work. I think one thing that I didn't like in, you know, major corporations is you're literally managing, as opposed to, you know, most of our team members are individual contributors that will hardcore get into the details,
Yeah.
but also be able to lead and manage and empower folks. Um, you sometimes just gotta make the hard decision, and everyone's gonna be cranky, right?
Hmm.
The
Yeah.
board's cranky, your executives are cranky, the team's cranky, the market's cranky, but like at the end of the day, it's sitting on your desk, make the decision, and you kind of gotta live with it.
Yeah.
Um, but you know, try to surround yourself with people that, as I often say, folks have got a screw loose to be doing this.
Yeah.
You know, we've got a lot of executives on the team have worked on this. You know, actually, the founding management team, myself, Stacy, Mercedes, and Aaron, are literally still the management team at
Wow.
Knightscope.
That's awesome.
Obviously, we've added a bunch of folks, and you can go to knightscope.com/management to check out the team. But if you get, you know, a bunch more lunatics to to be as crazy and relentless about it, that helps a lot. And finding those people is hard because you can't. We spend 60 minutes on an interview. I'll do another interview. Don't know. You think in like assessments by 3 people in 3 hours, you're gonna know who's for real.
Yeah.
You
No
won't
way.
know for 6 months. You won't know for 2 years who's
Mhm.
for real. And you find out who's for real when the shit hits the fan. And like when
100%.
everything's awful, everything's not working, the world's gonna end, there's a pandemic, bank failure, whatever it is. And the back's up against the wall. You'd be surprised who ends up stepping up, and you'd be surprised also as to the people that you thought would be able to handle that can't, right?
Yeah, that's really powerful.
And it's hard. Like that's why the recruiting HR process is almost an impossibility. You're gambling. Like, okay, looks good on paper. They seem nice and smart. Like, hopefully this works.
Yeah, seriously. I love that. Okay. What's so you've overcome a lot of, we talked earlier, you said mistakes, and you're like, we've made all the mistakes in the book and then some, or alluded to that, and you're still standing. So it reminds me of the Elton John song of I'm still standing. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That kind of thing. I love
I'm
that.
more of a metalhead, but go ahead.
I see you got music behind me. So all right. So let's talk about adversity, Bill. How do you handle adversity and or obstacles in general, and how do you overcome them?
Well, it's part of the job, the adversity, right? Most things want to be steady state. Most people don't like change. And so you just, I don't know, part of it, if you're wanting to change or you're trying to sell something, maybe some people are not gonna be happy with me saying this, but you're trying to do something, it's fear, greed, or hope. If you're
Right.
really good at it, it's fear, greed, and hope,
I like
right?
that.
And you try to instill, all right, here's a huge problem, and hopefully people start paying attention. There could be an interesting upside on this. There's an outlier opportunity here. And hope is traction, hope is a vision, hope is, you know, willing to do crazy stuff. Like, if you didn't catch it, like last month, I did 10 town halls. Like, I'm a CEO of a publicly traded company sitting there getting grilled for hours on end by investors and being able to sit there and have the calm conversation, answer the questions, try to educate where possible, give them answers that they may not like. And we did that for the first quarter town hall as well, to go through our financial results. And in a lot of cases, investors are betting on the company, the market, but they're also betting on me and the team.
Right.
And if you're willing to sit there and have the frank conversation of like, well, I'm not happy with the stock price. Well, guess what? I'm freaking pissed off to the nth degree. You know why? Because I have 7 million shares. I haven't sold a single share, including in the public listing, and don't plan to sell anything. So I'm literally financially aligned with you. And yeah, I'm ticked off too. So I don't want you ever wondering what Bill is working on, right? If my entire net worth is in Knightscope. And if you're able to assert something like that and it's truthful, then you've got a chance to turn that adversity into something positive and to try to rally people to get them to understand these are serious times. It's a serious set of issues that needs serious people and serious technology to address. And then comes the conversation about short sellers and all this other stuff. Like, what do you want me to do? I don't control folks, right? If you're naked shorting, man, you're going to get busted. So knock it off. But
Yeah.
you have every legal right to short a company if you like. My only assertion to you is we're genuinely trying to do something in the national security interest of the United States of America. We're trying to help you and your community and your family. Like, you're gonna be on the wrong side of history here. Like,
Yeah.
just because you have a right to do it, probably, maybe you should consider not doing that. And that's why, when we launched, when we did the public listing, we had this hashtag of, long Knightscope and short the criminals. And
Right.
everyone's like, what the hell does that mean?
Right.
It means what it says. I
Yeah.
want you to go long on the company and I want you to literally place a bet against the criminals and terrorists.
Yeah, that is such a powerful message to investors. I mean, it's so incredibly powerful. So, okay, best piece of advice that you'd like to share to your 30-year-old self or to the audience, and then we can wrap up after that. Because you've been very generous with your time, and thank you kindly.
To my 30-year-old self. So last year, is that
Pretty much. I was about to tell you 2 years ago. I'm not sure. Maybe
in my head, I'm still like 27, right?
That's all that matters, Bill. That's all that matters.
I think I think that that's a tough one to ponder through everything. I probably more consistency on health, and trying to eat better and stay more fit. And I think the other thing is, again, I don't know how I would have done it, but raise double the amount of capital than you actually need. But it's a little annoying to me that we're trying to do something in the interest of the country, and for me to be spending this amount of time doing more financial engineering than actual engineering, it is a awful reflection on how broken the capital formation process is in the US. And
yeah, it's one of those.
This is and I'm going to tick off some people, but I don't care. Like, listen, you venture capitalists, right? You dole out 100 to 200 billion dollars a year into startups, mostly into software. Hey, reality check. The world doesn't work just on software. Like, oh, well, I can't download it from the cloud. It's too hard. Hardware is hard. You know why you say hardware is hard? That's the technical equivalent of a bunch of lawyers building a hospital and then going, surgery is hard. It's like, you have no sector expertise. Of course, you're going to tell me it's hard. And so my challenge is, you're supposed to be innovating in this space. You asked to disrupt the education sector, the financial markets, e-commerce, retail, advertising, but anyone wants to change the capital formation process. Whoa. We don't want to do that. Well, my challenge to you is, why isn't there 1,000 Elons funded right now? You deliver a commodity of capital, right? You should be financing the most important ideas and powerful ideas that can make a big impact on society. And somehow people are still like doing the equivalent of funding, photo sharing apps. Like, seriously, you got 6 PhDs working on this?
Yeah, seriously.
And it's a broken process. And I don't think I'll ever technically retire, but one day that needs to get fixed. If you genuinely want to turbocharge the economy, do you know how many powerful founders and entrepreneurs that have incredible capabilities that didn't happen to go to Stanford and don't happen to live in California, like, don't have the financial support to go build their company? The level of stupidity is incredible.
It really is.
And I think we shouldn't have had to do what we did to get the company funded, but we did, and that's fine. And I try wherever I can to try to help other entrepreneurs or give them a tip or two, and that was part of spending the time today. But hopefully your audience understands that Knightscope has a very ambitious mission. We can't do this by ourselves. We've gotten it this far, and we certainly need the support to be able to continue to grow the company and make a big impact on the US.
No, I love it. I absolutely love it. To me, I find your story to be both personal story, but also business story, to be incredibly powerful. And the business side of it, irrespective of the stock price, look at the business. Like Buffett says, he buys businesses, right? So he's not buying stocks. The business itself is doing great, and it's just about to get started with this whole AI revolution. And once people begin to understand A, the problem, B, the TAM, and then C, the solution, and that what you guys have already done and how much of a head start you have, to me, it's going to be like,
it's kind of, Adam, to me, it's nuts. Like, okay, so let me get this straight. Wall Street's going to ignore a company at the intersection of autonomy, robotics, AI, and electric vehicles.
Right.
Seriously? And addressing a massive problem for the entire country and it affects everyone everywhere.
Yeah.
And they've got a recurring revenue business model for that problem. Like, it doesn't hold water. So that's why, like I mentioned, you just got to keep at it. And in my personal view, typically Wall Street has things quote unquote wrong in the short term and typically right over the long term. And I think we've got a shot to build a $30 billion company that, circle back where we started, that ends up looking like kind of a Lockheed Martin or Northrop Grumman, or big defense contractor. But instead, we're focused on the Department of Justice, the Department of Homeland Security, the 19,000 law enforcement agencies and 8,000 private security firms. And that company that builds all those technologies to help these folks, to me, is going to be priceless for society.
No question. Well, Bill, thank you so much as always. This has been absolutely fantastic. I've got about 3 pages of notes in front of me, so I'm going to watch it again and again, but thank you so much.
Thanks for taking the time. Be safe out there.